Welcome to One Man at a Time, the Kemen Show. Please like and subscribe to our channel.
The Kemen Show. We are strong together.
I encourage all our viewers from all over the world, go on to Facebook, like our page, and also go to our website, www.diasporamediamax.com, or you can listen up us right there, or you can go and download our app, DMAX Radio, the app. Welcome to Family and Health Focus Show, presented to you by Kemen. Kemen is an organization that is in diaspora, takes care of men in diaspora. If you're a man there in the diaspora and you have some issues, reach out to Kemen. Is KEMEN.org. You can find us and we'll be able to help you with whatever the issues we may be going on in through. And we are here to start up with each other, and we are here to encourage each other in diaspora. Welcome to Diaspora Media Max, and today we're gonna have a very interesting topic. We take one decision, we take something that's one issue sometimes, and we discuss what's going on and to help out the family there. We are here for the whole family, be it the children, be it the parents, be it the grandparents. We are here for the whole family because we have our own Rosa Semio here. She can tell us what she does. I'm a registered nurse by profession, and Lucy has a bit much more on top of that. And I can see here we have our own here, Dr. Johnson, all the way from Kenya, and I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. And we have also Monica Degwa, who's going to introducing that guest. I say welcome, Dr. Bororio, and also our other guest here for coming to our show today. And we're going to have a good show. Lucy, how are you? And you can introduce your guest.
Thank you so much. I'm fine, Alex. Always a pleasure to co-host with you. And thank you, Dear Max Radio, for this opportunity and privilege to come to the show again to share, discuss, educate, learn. You know, we are students of this world. We learn every day, don't we? As you've all heard, I'm Lucy Watani Simiu from the big state of Texas. We do it big here in Texas. We talk big in Texas. When we have problems, they come huge storms. But when we laugh loudly. So that's us here in Texas. And by profession, I'm a nurse, public health nurse. I'm also a hat also of biblical counselor. So today I'm here as health educator. And that said, we have a guest. We're going to start with the ladies, right? So I'm going to introduce our guest, Monica Ndegwa, who is a nurse. She's the founder and CEO of Project Afia, a nonprofit that provides health and nutrition support for pregnant women and children in Githurai, Kenya. Monica holds both a bachelor's and master's degree in nursing and is currently working on a doctorate in organizational leadership. Congratulations, lady. She lives in Houston and Texas, in Texas with her husband of 20 years. Congratulations again with 3 teenagers. Madam, I don't know how you're doing it. Monica works full-time as a public school nurse in Houston, Texas. Welcome, Monica. And to start us off, tell us what is chronic disease and how we can move from there.
Before that, I'm going to go ahead and have Dr. Bororio introduce himself, and then we're going to go start with Dr. Bororio. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Lucy. And thank you, Monica, for giving me this opportunity. Basically, it's my first time on air, and
welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Good to have you.
So my name is Johnson Yanusi Bororio. I'm a doctor by profession. I've been practicing for, I think, the past 5 years now. I'm working on a private organization. It's called Naidu Hospital in Thika. Thika is in Kenya, of course, and in Nairobi. Yeah. But it's in Kiambu.
We are all over the world.
Yeah. But personally, I come from Kisii. Kisii is Nyanza, you know, like Western Nyanza. We say there's Luo Nyanza, which is the Southern Nyanza, and then the Western Nyanza. So that's where I come from. Basically, I'm a general practitioner. Currently, I'm not a specialist in any department so far.
Okay, good to have you.
I practice, of course, generally in our field.
Good to hear about that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so our topic today pretty much we're gonna be looking on high pressure. People call it hypertension. Some people call it, mostly in Kenya, people call it BP. BP can be high or can be low. So we're gonna be focusing on high blood pressure. That's our topic for viewers today. And as we'll be answering questions from our viewers, and we're gonna be looking on what our viewers want to know, and they may be asking our guest questions or even us. We are here, all of us, to learn and hear from others, and we can go from there. And then we go to Monica. And Monica, you can tell us what you have for us for today. We're going to go back and forth. This pretty much is going to be an interesting conversation. As we run, we're in the class right now, and we have two teachers, and they're going to be a bunch of students asking questions, and people want to know what's about or about the hypertension. Go ahead, Lucy. Monica.
So I think I'm just going to start with describing what chronic disease is. And then I can let the doctor go more into detail about high blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So today we are trying to just understand how chronic disease can be managed in marginalized communities.
Mm-hmm.
So chronic disease is any health condition that lasts more than a year and requires continuous medical care.
Mm-hmm.
So you will find diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma. So those diseases stay with you for a lifetime, usually, most of the time, and they need for you to be going for continuing care. You have to take medicine, go to the doctor frequently. So that is what a chronic disease is. Now, in terms of marginalized communities, marginalization can occur in any setting, pretty much, in any setting in a community. But in this particular topic, we're talking about marginalization in the fact of the people or individuals who are set aside by society for whatever reason. So it could be like you see with LGBTQ, those people can be marginalized by society. It can happen in the workplace. Where you can have certain people marginalized in the workplace, either because of your race or something to do with your education or anything like that. So in any social setting, really. But in this particular topic now, we're talking about marginalization in terms of poor communities, probably just people who don't have the same access or affordability and stuff like that, like everybody else. So that's what we mean, mainly poor communities, really, when we talk of marginalized.
And a poor person who may be out there, especially we talk about the whole world. So maybe poor people in in the communities like Dr. Parodius they serve. So
yes. So in that sense, you find that chronic disease is very common in marginalized communities. Unfortunately, it's like a vicious cycle, because not only does poverty cause disease, especially chronic disease, and chronic disease is mainly can be predetermined by things that happen when you are young. So conditions that you're living in, the food that you're eating, the way that you're being raised, your mental health, everything all together can predict your chances and your risks of having a chronic disease. So in poor communities, when it comes to diseases like high blood pressure, which I'm going to let the doctor talk more about high blood pressure, is the fact that your diet, your ability to exercise, your ability to access care, to afford medicine is so important in controlling your high blood pressure and stopping any other
cascade of the diseases,
complications from occurring. But at the same time, disease and the cost of disease can lead to poverty. You've seen people who become poor because of disease. So it's a vicious cycle.
Good example.
Yes, it's a vicious cycle that becomes a domino effect, really. Yes.
One thing we have seen, especially in American communities here in the United States, is that There are diseases, chronic diseases that will make you become bankrupt. Good example is diabetes, which will lead to kidney failure, which will lead to other cascades, and technically they are named bankrupt diseases. And with that, actually, this is the right time we can actually have Dr. Borolio. Monica just talked about a very important thing, poverty tied to diseases. And what we have seen in most communities, like it's like a system that's being set up that where you grow up, you may end up having this disease, and that disease. And in the United States, you are seeing more of fast food restaurants, liquor stores popping up in poor people's neighborhood, like in every single corner. So the system has set them with a diet from the word go, the junk food. They are set up with the junk food, which is very, very, very cheap. That's the only thing they can afford. And with that, it will come with other complications, chronic diseases. Dr. Borolio, do you see this relationship in Kenya where like a marginalized group of people has this disease, maybe because they're marginalized because of poverty, especially in terms of in terms of hypertension? What do you see if we start from that marginalization, and then you can jump onto your own thing?
No, thank you so much, Alex. Maybe before we talk about marginalization and disease, one thing maybe I wish to add to what Monica said. Chronic diseases basically say they are uncommunicable diseases. Yeah. The most important thing maybe to note that they are uncommunicable. Basically, they are not transferred to somebody. You see. Now, a good of them. Sorry.
It's not like just like a common cold or a flu. That's
it's not like corona or something.
Or TB or chronic diarrhea.
Basically, it's not airborne or something. It's something we say it's not transferred to somebody. Now, a number of these diseases, basically, we say they're more of lifestyle than how we acquire them or something. Now, marginalization, basically, maybe in our country, we may not be very specific about it because not so many people, especially from the poor background, so staff know about these diseases. Yeah. Maybe somebody in the village has hypertension, but they really do not have a place where they can go and check and say I'm hypertensive or something. So the challenge basically is maybe monitoring and saying I have a disease. So we may not really say that maybe the poor are maybe isolated from such cases, but it's because they are not tested. That's the key thing.
They don't have, most of them don't even know they have it. They keep complaining.
Yeah, they live with it. They have no access to and maybe get tested or something. So we do not have maybe a good number of statistics. You may say marginalization is one of the commonest issues, but it's because of the healthcare system. Assessing, of course, somewhere to go and get tested may be an issue. So people, especially in the villages, they also assume such diseases are for the rich. So they basically do not think they can get that. So the healthcare system should, of course, be able to capture such.
But the healthcare system, if I go like one step back for marginalization, so how is the health? Do we have like? Let me put it in a simple way. So a poor person from the village By the time they get to the hospital to be diagnosed with hypertension, I would assume it's too late compared to rich people.
Yeah, most commonly they come late, and they don't come because of hypertension or something. They come with something. Maybe somebody had a diarrhea or something, so he says, "Let me go to the hospital because of the diarrhea." So when you check, maybe their blood pressure, their blood sugar, it's on the rise, and something that maybe has been with it for a long time, and they don't know. So they come to the hospital with something else, not hypertension.
Really because for the maybe high blood pressure, hypertension, or I mean for diabetes. Yeah. Okay.
Now, maybe if there's no question, we may quickly go past the hypertension thing, and then maybe we can get questions for 1, 2, and then we see what happens next.
Okay, so the first question here is that it's so most of the people getting stroke in Kenya, very young people, due to uncontrolled high blood pressure.
Yeah.
So what can we help our viewers out there to help manage high blood? What are the symptoms of the high blood pressure that they will know to look for before it becomes too late and they end up with a stroke?
And I think also to before you explain that, you know, in the village, I have an auntie who is always calling me, and she's talking of pressure. I don't even think people understand what is this pressure. They think it's something. So maybe Daktari, in those terms of layman language, how would you explain what is blood pressure? High blood pressure.
No. Blood pressure, basically, in the village, people say pressure. Pressure, basically, in a layman's language, we say, blood is above what we say the normal level, of course, in your system. Now, when you check your blood pressure, there are two things, of course, that we measure, and then say you have blood pressure. There are numbers, of course, the 110 over 80. So those are basically the things we start with. Now, the two numbers basically refer to something. It's the number that we use to now maybe classify somebody if he's hypertensive, he's getting hypertension, or maybe he's in a normal range. The top number basically is called a systole. Systole is the top number. Basically, it shows the heart pumps blood, of course, in the arteries. And the bottom number, which of course usually is lower than the upper number, shows pressure between beats. No, when the heart beats, basically, it's like a cycle. The heart receives blood and then sends blood. So that process, usually it's where you get the beats, the first beat and the second beat. So now that one you may not get it unless now you check and you are a professional or something. So how, in simple terms, basically, blood pressure basically is elevation of blood pressure, elevation of course blood pressure. It's
okay, in pretty much in your vein, in your system.
Yeah, in your system.
So question is
arteries and your
veins. So question is, when should a viewer getting worried if they are checking their blood pressure? Like what number? Like we have two numbers. You have the top number and number.
Top and the bottom number. Now, when
should they start get worried?
Now, this thing we have a range. The normal range is usually 120 over 80. Yeah. But in an ideal situation, we usually add 20 on top, 10 below. That's a positive or a negative. Yeah. So anything between 100 over 60 and 140/80 is also okay.
Okay. I have a sister who is
Yeah.
always complaining. I have a headache. I have a headache. I have a headache. I tell them first, ask them, how much is your blood pressure?
Yes.
So they'll tell me, 150/90. Should they start getting worried?
Now, that's where now the things come in. Then there are stages, yeah? We have what we call, of course, the normal blood pressure. There's something we call mild blood pressure, and then, of course, the severe blood pressure. The normal blood pressure is what I've just said. It's 100/60 to 140/80. Now, pre-hypertension basically means you are at a risk of getting blood pressure. Yeah? It's usually between 140/80 to 150/90. You know that range, a range of 10. So at that point, you may not say basically this person has blood pressure, because there may be other issues that are causing the blood pressure to cause rise. You may be needed to do 1, 2, 3 testing before you now conclude and say this guy has blood pressure. Anything above 150/90, it's automatically something to
need to be looked at by a professional. Lucy, you have a question?
Yes, and Dr. thank you so much for explaining about those ranges. And I'm thinking about, that woman, like I said about my auntie, or the village. What is your advice and for being able to manage or even detect this? Because we know in this part of the world, or other people who are, that are able to, they go for health checkup. So with these cases, we are finding so many people getting stroke because of those numbers. So how can we address the management and the challenge and the barriers? What's the education? What's the basic education we can give our people, to understand that it's a silent killer. It kills, it silently kills.
Yeah. Now, that maybe now something I may maybe put it in a way. We have things that we say they are contributing factors. These are things that basically lead to blood pressure, or in a way contribute to somebody getting blood pressure. In addressing, of course, issue of blood pressure, we need to, of course, get one or two or three things that maybe contribute to the issues of blood pressure. One is age. When you get above 40, 45, there are a lot of things that now start happening. Your arteries start becoming, stiff and the stuff. So basically, anybody above 45 years should regularly get their blood pressure checked, regardless of you are sick, you are not. It's one of the things that you need to be getting it checked regularly. Two, people who have a history in the family that your grandparents, your parents have blood pressure, you need to be on a lookout, basically, because of they say sometimes the blood pressure runs in the family. So if you have a history in the family that somebody has blood pressure, you need to check regularly also. Three, one of the commonest issues we are having, especially in Kenya, is sedentary life. Because lifestyle, people are getting
obese
big and every day.
Yeah,
sure.
Because of what I think Alex said, junk food and the stuff. So weight is basically one of the problems we have, especially in Kenya. People are eating recklessly, So if you feel your BMI is on the rise, that's one thing you need to work on. Because the more the work you give to your heart to pump blood through your veins and stuff.
Dr. How has that changed as age? And a woman who was slim you know, you'd even go home if you're married and you are a certain way, just by the looks, they ask you, hey, are you having problems? You know, being big how has that shift? Is it still affecting us? So that, you know, to be seen to be certain way, you know, it was affiliated with, you know, being well, you know, well kept. Whereas it's killing us. So how is that shifting? And how are you also addressing that to our communities? Because isn't it one of the barriers?
Like when you see your patient, what do you tell them?
You see, the problem is you are not where somebody is when of course they eat. The problem is what we eat, and we have borrowed a lot from the Western. People don't eat,
biggest mistake. That's it.
People don't eat what we recommend. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you need to take maybe a cup of tea and let's say 2 or 3 slices of bread. But somebody will take bread plus, of course, eggs plus a lot of tea, and you know, people want to fill their bellies and the stuff. It does not work that way. You know, you need to eat something that is balanced, and of course, now the biggest challenge, patient education, and of course the nutrition part. You know, we don't have many nutritionists, and then the few who are there, people, I think, despise them. You know, you tell somebody you need to see a dietitian. Somebody says you want me to see somebody who will teach me how to eat. You know,
That's interesting.
They don't find that value in, of course, somebody who will teach you how to eat. And then it's gaining weight is very fast than losing weight.
Yeah, of course, everywhere.
Because when you eat, when gaining weight, you really don't know you are gaining weight. You eat. Few months down the line, you will find yourself, you know, your clothes are not fitting. Then you will realize, I've added a lot of weight. And then losing weight is also a big problem because as much as you'll be running, jogging around, you also need to watch your diet. That is the key thing. If you don't watch your diet, then your jogging will be useless, because you jog, you burn a lot of calories, you go back to the house, you eat the same or more. So it's also, diet is basically.
But Daktari, let me ask you now, if you're talking to Mama Mboga and me, who have only Gideri, you know, they have no choices. There's no food choice. So how are we addressing this? They don't have choices, the luxury of, you know, all these foods in the fridge. How are we addressing that? And maybe also Monica could, being a CEO of this AFIA project, could address also this in how you addressing this health and nutrition support for pregnant women, because most of them are also being found with high blood pressure.
Now, what we usually say, it's not the quality of food you eat, it's basically the quantity of food you eat. Basically, that's the bottom line. Now, discipline is not something that is taught in school, it's something you try and, of course, make yourself. So eating basically is discipline.
Self-control.
Yeah. Basically is discipline. Patient education is what we basically have a problem in Kenya. It's one of the things we don't emphasize on so much, because sometimes somebody walks in, you have a long queue, you may not find the time to tell, you know, things are getting on the bad side. But the few we find, and of course we feel they need that advice, we usually tell them, as much as you, let's say you are poor or something, you balanced diet does not mean you eat meat, you eat pork, you eat, I don't know what. Basically, it's carbohydrates, vitamins, and of course some protein. Plant protein is equally good as, of course, animal protein.
So I got a question.
Okay, go ahead, Alex.
I got a question for you, because we have something called NIHF, and here Monica can actually address this issue too. based on what she's seeing in the drawing. So we have NIHF. So does this insurance help people to go for physicals at least once in an year? Is it allowable? Does it let people go even after coming mama boy or jiko or nyachaya or nyadusi anywhere? Does it help? Is there anything that can help them to go, hey, you have one free physical per year or twice a year to go get checked by any doctor where they accept this NIHF insurance?
No, issues with NHIF, basically, we have had the issues with them for a long time now. May be able maybe to say, depending on the hospital, because NHIF basically allocates, let's say you get a contract with them, you agree on what you need to do and what basically you don't need to do. Because we recently introduced, of course, the outpatient cover, NHIF. So the outpatient cover basically is allocated to hospitals that can be able to offer the services. Now, depending on the amount you agree on the contract, it will also define what you will do and what you may not be able to do. So if you are, maybe hospital is given a little amount, you may, per patient, you may not be able to do such tests. But there are hospitals which are given that mandate, of course, of carrying out the yearly testing, but not many patients, of course, know that it happens.
That was my point, because if there is people in the villages, they can afford 500 shillings a month, and they never use the insurance because they don't feel sick. So can they work in a public hospital or hospital that can do their physicals and check them, just basic labs and just physicals, check your blood pressure, check their A1C, make sure they don't have diabetes? And I'm coming to you, Monica, because I have a question for you too. Let the doctor finish.
So as I've said, of course, part of the NHIF is because people don't know that sometimes you can walk into somewhere and these things are there with the NHIF. You go to them, you ask them which hospital maybe can I go and get an annual maybe checkup. Or people go to the hospital because they are sick, not because they want to. They don't want to be sick. Somebody goes because he's sick, not because they don't want to be sick. People fear going to the hospital, so.
So you have to pay for insurance for a whole year, 6,000, and you won't go to be checked until you are sick. Okay, Monica, what's the relationship you are seeing with your AFIA organization, with NHIF, and these people not using it or having problems using the insurance? How much is being covered or what's not covered? Do they even know?
You know, I think the most important thing, I would say, in marginalized communities is education. Education is a big factor when it comes to health. And, you know, public health in Kenya especially, or even just generally anywhere, is dependent on different things. You see, so in a situation like this one of just high blood pressure, we can even keep it as simple as just high blood pressure. So when I started Project AFIA in 2018, it was mainly to visit sick people. You visit sick people and take care packages and pray with them and give them hope, right? So our first visit was to Kenyatta Hospital. And we visited the ward and we went to visit 100 patients. So we had really planned. We had made care packages, we had volunteers, and we went and we visited the hospital, and we didn't come with just useless care packages. You know, we had soap, toilet paper, toothpaste, the kind of things they're not providing for you at the hospital. So we just wanted to take hygiene kit. But then when we got there, our beautiful idea seemed almost laughable. You know, it seemed laughable because an idea that seemed to work so well here, where you can go and visit patients and give blankets and warm soap. And so some of the patients looking at us like, no, we don't even know when we are going to leave the hospital because we don't know how we are going to pay our bill. You see? So we ended up paying, we were pleaded with about a certain lady, an older lady, who had been admitted. She was already treated. And funny enough, her story had to do with high blood pressure. So I think her blood pressure was starting to lead to like congestive heart failure or something. So she was having that backup. So swollen feet and difficulties breathing and all that stuff. So she had already been treated. She was feeling better, but she hadn't been released. She couldn't be released because she owed 50,000. See? So after I thought about it for a little bit, we gave her her care package, but we paid for her bill. And I remember we paid her bill, I think, because it was the cheapest, the smallest, or the one that we had been approached with, or her situation was, you know, kind of. So after that, we decided to follow up. And this is now how I really came to understand public health in Kenya, and especially in those poor communities. You see, as we are talking now, we are talking from an informed point of view. You see, so we know the importance of going to the doctor. We know that high blood pressure is a silent disease. And now, as we are talking about it here, we are talking to people who have smartphones, computers. They are watching us through social media. You see, but now in some of these poor communities, they don't have access to these things. They're not sitting there listening to us right now in that poor village. You see, so it's taking this dialogue and taking it to those poor communities, and now making people who are healthy, they're feeling fine. Now you come and tell them you need to go to the doctor every 6 months. Meanwhile, they can't afford food. So when this lady went back home, following up with her, she was not going for care. She was not continuing to see the doctor. So that is where the issue of NHIF came in. And as much as it seems almost, it's sad to think about, because we're talking about $5 here. You see, $5, 500 shillings. It seems like so little, but you now find families that cannot afford that money. They cannot afford it. They look at that 500 shillings and they just can't even think about it. So they self-treat everything. You see, they self-treat everything. So this lady, she will start experiencing the same problems. Her access to quality foods, her access to care is diminished, and the cycle continues. She will end up in the hospital again with another bill that she cannot afford to pay. So the last thing we introduced now as Project Afya was NHIF. After that visit, it became like such a pitiful case for me, because I could not imagine that people are not being able to afford that 500 shillings. You see? Now, once we had done that and we were paying for these patients NHIF, they would still go home to no food, no clean water. They have no money. They have no way of bringing in income. So you have to take, it was unfortunate because everything that is being offered to these people is being offered in piecemeal. These people, they offer clean water. That's all they do. Clean water and toilets. So they will go to the effort of building a toilet in that village, bringing a well, and then that's it. They solve the water problem. Then somebody else comes and tries to solve the food problem. You see?
No,
nobody is coming with a comprehensive thing. You see what I mean? So you help one person, but from only one angle.
And that's a challenge. That's a big challenge we are having in our communities, especially in Kenya. We have a lot of issues. Dr. Johnson, I have a question for you. This is going to be straight to you, and I'm trying to help our viewers here. What's the issue with our people asking a doctor a question? You prescribe me this medication. What is it for? Nobody asks. And if you ask my parents to to ask the doctor, no, we don't do that here? How comes?
Yeah.
Now, it's a general question, so I may not be able to answer for everybody. But what I know, sometimes it also depends on doctor and the patient. Okay. If you
So let me tell you one thing. Here in the United States, well, the way here in the United States,
that's what I want to explain something before maybe you tell me next.
Okay.
In our setup, of course, the patient has no rights.
The patient has no rights.
Basically, that's
so
how patients feel. You see,
Very sad, yeah.
that's how patients feel it, that they have no rights. What the doctor says is always true. Okay.
Is it that they have no rights, or they have rights they fear to ask?
They have the rights, but they feel they have the rights. Basically,
culture,
that's what is happening.
Patient education and the culture.
It's a culture.
It's a culture that the patient comes in. The doctor, what the doctor says is always
question asked.
No questions, you know. But again, we are trying to, get out of that. Basically, when a patient comes, of course, you ask him, how are you? The patient will tell you, okay, I am, let's say, greetings, I am okay, but I am unwell, okay? So, of course, you go ahead, you ask, what's the issue? You explore 1, 2, 3. After, of course, you finish, you give the patient a chance. You tell them now, do you have any issue? You want to get a clarification or something? So the patient may find you may be friendly in a way, and then he may be able to tell you 1, 2, 3 things. Now, people are depressed, especially this period of COVID. Most people are coming to the hospital with depression, but somebody will not come and tell you I'm depressed. They will come and say, I've not been sleeping, I'm not eating well. So you may start thinking, oh, is this person having psychological issues? But they may not hit you if maybe you do not give this patient a chance and maybe tell the patient, is there something that is maybe bothering you in a way? Because all the things we have looked into, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, they are okay. So the patient slowly maybe gains that confidence and, of course, that freeness. They may open up. So it's something we want to, as much as possible, try to tell our people that we encourage questions, but not all the time that somebody wants to. Of course, you go to a public hospital because of the long queues and the staff. Somebody may not have the time to take your questions or something. You just need to set your immediate problem and then let you go.
Clary,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. I hear you and about that encouragement to improve the doctor-patient relationship. But they said that doesn't it seems like there is more meets the eye. What can you do more? Is it a viable thing for doctors to improve that patient relationship? Because it's a two-win, it's a win-win, it's a two-way thing. You're gaining from the patient and the patient is gaining from you in one way or the other. So how can doctors improve this? And what I'm saying is that to improve that relationship, is it possible for doctors to decentralize their offices and make the way we do something you can borrow a leaf from? Nothing so hard to decentralize your offices and go to the patient's homes, even in the villages. That way, the patient feels that these doctors are approachable, because I hear and I know, we've been there, even being a mother in Kenya, not even to go to the nurses. I don't want to get started, just the prenatal care and all those things. There is a lot of fear. Is there a way what is it that can be done to improve the doctor and patient relationship and the nurses?
Let me add something to that question. Daktari, I think even here I want to really just understand the culture of healthcare in Kenya, because one of the things we do with our patients is trying to teach them how to be to own your own health. You see, but I think culturally, culturally, you see, our people are looking at the doctors at a very high level.
Unapproachable.
Yeah, that's
Not
that's
even
the
just
issue.
unapproachable. Like that cannot
Yeah.
be wrong.
It's always
All
right.
the
Yeah.
Untouchable.
education,
You know, untouchable.
yes.
It's pathetic.
And then the doctors, unfortunately, now have that.
Yeah, of course, the bragging rights.
Oh,
I know.
Oh,
the bragging rights.
That
cultural thing. Even when I went into the room, I am the big boss. I'm intimidating. I come, I tell you, pap, this is the issue here. And you just are forced to now just sit there and say, okay, yes, thank you. And you just go and do what the doctor said. Is it really, it's a culture thing? Can it be teached? Can it be taught? Can that culture be changed through education?
No, maybe, I'm sorry to say this, but if you go to a public hospital and you go to a private hospital,
Mhm.
the reception basically is different.
Mhm.
Because of the of course the
How
change
much
of
you
reception,
pay?
basically what you have in your pocket. Let's
Technically.
put it that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
we understand
Yeah.
that. We understand that.
Yes. So if you a private hospital, somebody does not want to maybe tarnish the name of the institution. That's one thing.
Mhm.
Two, of course, people are making profits. The more patients you bring to the facility, the more the profits.
Mhm. The more the bonus. Mhm.
Yeah. And then, of course, unlike, of course, the public sector where you walk in, somebody is not interested. Whether you come, you don't come, it's not their problem, you see? So that's
Yeah. So
that's the difference.
but the training, if you look at the training, pretty much the same. You
The
went to the
training is the same.
training the same.
Yes.
And actually, culturally, we need to shift our. We are in the 21st century, pretty
Yeah.
much. And what I tell our viewers is, as you have heard, you have the right to ask a
Yes.
question to the
The
doctor.
rights,
The doctor is not,
basically,
it's not your enemy. You don't
Yes.
have to be afraid. You can ask a question, so it's called medical practice. I am in it.
sometimes they feel, the doctors are some kind of gods,
Genius,
That's
or
what patients
genius or
say.
gods. No.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do things by try and error. We practice. That's why we check this, we check that, we check that, we check this, because we don't know. Not all the time we know what it is.
That's
That's why
why
we do too many tests.
That's why
Trying-
you hear
trying and
somebody
error.
tells you that guy is sick. You don't believe it. How?
The doctor is sick. How?
How?
It's a human being.
They're human
people.
beings
A
also,
human
but
being.
people don't feel it that way.
Okay, so one other thing much we attach with our topics of today, we went between the chronic disease management, and also we touched a little bit about hypertension. Our people are young, especially the women are dying in their 30s and 40s from stroke. They are getting hit by stroke so bad. The diet changed, and people are eating more and more junk food. And going back to Lucy's question was that our parents were big, our parents were thick, but the pets was what they ate, what type of the diet they ate. They were not eating junk food. They were eating good food. They were walking everywhere. They were doing hard work everywhere. Today, we have motorbikes. Our parents can no longer even walk 10 feet anymore. They can't even walk to church anymore. They cannot even walk anywhere anymore. And that's why we are seeing that the issues with hypertension, stroke, diabetes, all these lifestyle changes, diseases are skyrocketing because of the way the technology is changing things. And one thing we need to address, as the doctor said, patient education is becoming poor and poor and poor. I think people are getting much. There are people who are getting poor, and the people who are getting rich and rich, because you go to the villages, you start running some of these programs, they're gonna look at you as if you are laughable and a joke, because they're like, "What is he talking about? Why do you have to do this? I'm not sick." And also the other problem with high blood pressure. People stop taking medication because, hey, why am I taking medication and I'm not sick?
Exactly.
And the next thing you know, it's a stroke, a full-blown stroke. And people doesn't go to hospital until they are completely sick and in critical condition. But they have the insurance. They've been paying for it every month. Even those people who are not like poor of the poor in the villages, there are people who are even have a job. They have the NHIF to do a job. They have it, but they never use it. But they pay for it. They even have even
Alex, this is where, honestly, this is where education. You see, people don't know. And the problem is where I'm starting to challenge us who have now come, we've become educated. See, as we're sitting on this panel, we are all health providers, healthcare providers. We're in the healthcare field. So I'm challenging people because education and culture. Culture, first of all, you have to realize in our culture, it's just that things are changing now, but the stigma of disease. Let me tell you, the stigma of disease. You find that you even have aunties and uncles who you don't know a disease running in your family. You have no idea. You find your aunties, your relatives, they hide something as simple as high blood pressure. They don't want people to know at so and so on ugonjwa ya sukari. Diabetes is like I hosted a very good friend of our family. And by the time I came to find out that she's diabetic, so that I can adjust the way that I'm cooking, she had already been in my house for like 2 to 3 days. But I was just watching, selecting only certain things, you know. And I asked, because if you want me to cook a certain things for you, I can do it for you. Is it something to do with? By the time now she tells me, it's almost like there's a stigma attached to disease. Even the simplest diseases, we're not even talking HIV here.
You're talking about things like high blood pressure, kidney failure, hypertension. We want to even discuss about with your family members, and that's a problem we have. And actually, we are looking at
that. How do we help now with that?
You can get help, and they come to Daktari. They don't want to open. They don't want to have this.
I saw some improvement. I think I saw some improvement the last time I was in Kenya. And this is what I wanted to address also, maybe for the next time. I think we're almost running out of time. I was very encouraged when I went to some of the parts of Kenya, see the faith-based communities. In churches, we had nurses from the local clinic come to the church. They had that diabetic clinic day. So that way, I think those are some of the small but very meaningful ways that we can approach education. And when you talk about the system, you know, we could come here. I want to go to Kenya. When I go, you know, you feel like you want to go and change, you know. No, there has to be some systems in place. So I think touching on the faith-based, whether it's imam, spiritual, regardless of the religion, those are the targets. And I think these are things that we need to really address. And also something that I wanted us to touch on, Daktari talked about plant-based diets and animal. People need to know. If I eat dairy, you know, before, are you saying I don't eat meat? Nyama? How can I eat? I had my grandfather who said, you want me to eat like a rabbit? I need meat every day, you know? So how do we address these foods and what are the foods? So it's interesting.
Okay,
I think the most important thing here is, for me, my education to people this year, my dialogue for people this year has been, what are you doing? You as a person. You see, now when we talk about these conversations, we talk about this conversation in terms of us. So now, as we are having this dialogue with all of us, see? So when we talk about what are we doing, we now talk about Lucy, Monica, Alex, and Dr. Johnson. Now we say, what are you, Alex, doing as a person? So now I'm encouraging people to take the education that we have us now. You go back to your village where you grew up. You assess and you do this with your friends that you went to school with in that area, you people come up like 5 or 10 of you, or an alumni of a high school, and assess the village that you have grown in and ask yourselves what are the problems in that village. Yes? If education is a big problem in your village and people are getting more and more diagnosed with these chronic diseases, come together as a group of healthcare providers who have come here and become educated, and go and plan a simple health fair in your village.
A small clinic, even to check blood pressure and blood sugar for the people.
Yes, all the women of the guild.
And train
tell them to come.
how to do it. Actually, we have this model in Kia. Get somebody, train them how to check blood pressure, train them how to check blood sugars, and pretty much people who have issues like blood sugar and blood pressure, they go there every morning, they get their sugar checked, they get their blood pressure checked, they write it down. When they go see the doctor next time, here is my record. This way has been. How much does it take to run such a clinic? Maybe about less than $500 a month. Less than.
But you see, now the issue is a lot of times you don't think you as a person there's anything to do. You see? But now if we all sit, we can say, yes, diabetes is becoming a problem. Now it's rising so much in our country. Heart disease, high blood pressure, cancers. Okay, what are we doing us? What are we doing in our communities to teach people, to educate people, to change the narrative?
Sure.
Change the narrative, because Africans in general, we're very smart people. Africa has the resources which include our smartness. We're a very smart continent of people, but if something is holding us back, we've marginalized ourselves. You see?
Technically, we are doing it.
We've marginalized ourselves, where we think the problems that we have, especially when it comes to health, public health issues, stuff that we've assumed that those problems can be solved by the UN, the World Bank, and the government of Kenya. But we are
resourceful people. It's just the way we are resourceful.
Okay, let me give Dr. Ali a minute here, because he says something. Go ahead, Dr. Ali.
No, there are a lot of things you have said, and I think they are really helpful in a way. But of course, maybe to start with the last thing the Monica have said, basically you may start something, especially here in Africa, and going to the village, especially the clinics, the mobile clinics, and teach people. But with our, of course, mindset and the rest, some people, of course, will start saying, now this guy has started making money with our problems. So it's also something that
that's where
people don't.
Too many problems.
People don't feel that you are doing something to help them. They feel that you are doing something to gain personal gain. So basically, that's one thing that people need to be thought about. That this is not something I'm doing to gain myself. I'm doing this thing to enlighten the community and make you people
much healthy.
One other thing, of course, the stigma thing. Stigma is there, but the commonest maybe cause or source of the stigma is basically somebody who had it. Maybe somebody who had diabetes and died of it. So from that point, people say diabetes kills, blood pressure kills. I know it kills somebody. It kills somebody. You go to the hospital, you tell somebody your blood pressure. Now somebody not like it, you will start and say, so I'm going to die. A challenge also. Then the fact that somebody will be taking medicine for the rest of their lives is also scary in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's not something many people are prepared to, of course, live up with. But one of the things we are encouraging people, as much as we diagnose you with blood pressure, we tell you it's not the end of your life, but blood pressure will kill you if
you don't manage it.
Do not, of course, adhere to what we say and what, of course, we put you through. So adherence of medicine, especially the compliance part, should be very strict. If you diagnose with blood pressure and you start medication early, sometimes you got a good chance, of course, of living for a very long time. As much as we have somebody on medicine, we also advise on lifestyle modification. That's one area we emphasize on. We will not put you on blood pressure medicine and you feel fit poorly, you gain a lot of weight. We are doing something that is not helpful to you and, of course, to ourselves. This, of course, past few months, because of the COVID and the stuff, COVID, in a way, has shown us that as much as we depend on ourselves, we also depend on other people. So, being one brother, we say one skipper is also part of our module. These things, as much as I may not be able to reach out to everybody, I tell somebody, go to your neighbor, tell them if you feel 1, 2, 3 things, it's good you go and get a check. As much as you are healthy, there are clinics everywhere, there are dispensaries, there are, of course, chemists everywhere. Go get your blood sugar check. It's one thing that will keep, of course, the community healthy in a way, because hypertension is something, as Monica said, is a cellular. You will just die and you will not know it. Somebody will say, we don't know what killed him. You've been living with blood pressure for the rest of your life and you don't know. So, as much as you get somebody with blood pressure, tell them to, of course, pass the message, because basically I may not be able to reach
get checked and
everybody maybe in the village. So, coming from the village, get somebody, maybe your neighbor, your brother, let them get checked. Your wife, it's also very important.
Yes.
At the chemist, do they charge to check blood pressure?
They do. I think 100 bob in most chemists, and of course in the villages, I think it's 50 bob or something. It's not something that you'll be doing like today, tomorrow, and the other day. It's something you, of course, encourage somebody. If you get time and you feel you can, 100 bob, you can spend 100 bob and get it checked. Not everybody that, of course, you need to tell them to go and
Monica
check.
said something very special.
Yeah.
I think we can go with her model of like checking the AFIA thing.
The mobile clinics, of course.
The mobile clinic.
They are good, and of course, once you organize such, you can do it. Churches are from the past few maybe weeks, and I've seen people do it churches. The easiest you may meet people. Of course, you get an announcement maybe to the pastor or the reverend, tell them we want to hold a camp here maybe the end of the month. So the subsequent weeks you'll be making announcement, of course, of the coming camp. You can get, of course, and check people. It's something that can be done, and we may do if.
But I think the sustainability. One time, we have gone one time, but then the next time, it takes years. So how the sustainability of this project is our challenge. We want to do things from here, but then even the trust sometimes. You send those blood pressure cards, the integrity of people in the wrong places.
I think
we are in Africa, we are in Kenya. People are hungry for money. So
no.
Sometimes trusting people is a problem, and doing it yourself sometimes is a lot of issues.
The first thing we need to do is to change the way we think. That's the first thing. We have to change the way we think. Because the first thing that comes naturally in this dialogue, which it used to come naturally to me too, is I now sit and think, oh my God, the bureaucracy, the process, Kenyans, Our people, gosh. Now you're going to those things. Who? You see? As long as we keep talking that way and believing that way,
Yeah,
we
it
will
will
never
not happen.
done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's number one. Because there are good people.
Yeah, they are good people.
Good people are there. We just have to find them. Because if you tell yourself you can't trust anybody, and the people, if you send them, that will not work. Start with one person or two people that you trust.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, we don't even need to do big things.
No.
We don't need to do big things.
Small things.
Because I think with time, you know how we, even as we are growing up, we have been taught through Christianity, is the power of our own words. The power of our own words and the power of our own thoughts. So even for me, if I sit and say, I don't even know where I would start, people will go hungry in Kenya if we all think that way. See?
Miss Monica, I
But you
really
remember
love what you're
somebody
saying,
who-
and but you know what? Some are working, some are not. If we could improve on what is working and borrow
Yeah.
a leaf, but some have failed and people have gotten discouraged. People have tried. I can talk,
It's
can give my
discouraging.
own testimony. It's discouraging.
Not giving up. We have Dr. here. We are not gonna give up. We have Dr. here, and
Yes.
he's gonna be on my next camp. It's gonna be coming
And
up.
actually, what can we do about
Yes.
blood
Yeah.
pressure in marginalized communities?
I think we need to
Considering-
continue with this
We're gonna have to
discussion
continue
next week.
because our time is over actually.
Yes, we need to continue
Oh,
next
yeah.
week, I think. Yeah, will be a good discussion.
Dr. your final word, 30 seconds.
I don't think I have a final word. I may just say, pleasure, meeting you guys, and we are looking forward to making a
Yes.
change. It's a
Okay.
good start, and I believe we can get somewhere.
Yeah, we're gonna get somewhere. Welcome to Diaspora
Yeah.
Media Max. We broadcast, it's digital radio, we discuss and TV, we broadcast all over the world. Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. Thank you very much, Miss Lucy. Our time pretty much is up. We are 10 minutes over, and we are taking time from the other show, but we're gonna meet again next Saturday, and we are also here on Saturday at 11 p.m. Kenyan time and 3 p.m. Central time, 4 p.m. Eastern, and 1 p.m. Pacific. That's California, people of California, and we'll be here next Saturday. Join us next Saturday, and we will very much appreciate you, our viewers from all over the world, watching our show today, and God bless you all. Until next Saturday, goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Welcome to One Man at a Time, The Kemen Show. Please like and subscribe to our channel.
The Kemen Show. We are strong